Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready for a deep dive into something really cool. We're talking blockchain, smart contracts, that whole decentralized web thing.
It's more than just buzzwords, though, right?
Absolutely. We're going beyond the hype to see how this tech actually works and why it matters, especially for those of you already following this space.
It's fascinating, isn't it? People throw around Internet of Money like it's self-explanatory, but really understanding what that means. Well, that's key.
All right, it's like, okay, cool, the Internet of Money, but what does that actually look like?
Exactly. Our sources use the analogy of building a house, which I find really helpful. Instead of building on, say, shifting sand, blockchain offers a new blueprint, a new foundation for the digital age.
I like that analogy. So instead of traditional finance, we're talking about what?
Yeah.
A stronger foundation built on blockchain.
Yeah. But how does that work in practice?
Think about Bitcoin, the most well-known example. That immutability everyone talks about.
Yeah.
That's a direct result of how it's structured. Once a transaction's on the blockchain, it's permanently recorded. No changing it.
So it's tamper-proof.
Exactly. It's like a public ledger everyone can see, but no one can mess with.
Yeah.
And that's because of the cryptography behind it, particularly how transactions are validated.
Okay, so we've got this secure, transparent, tamper-proof foundation. That's great, but what are we actually building on top of it? Our sources dive into some pretty compelling use cases for this Internet of Money.
Absolutely. Let's start with an obvious one. Banking and payments. Ripe for disruption, wouldn't you say? Oh, for sure. I mean, sending money internationally, what a nightmare. The delays, the fees, dealing with all those intermediaries.
Exactly. And that's what blockchain streamlines. We could be talking near instantaneous cross-border transactions.
Wait, seriously? Instantly? With minimal fees?
Potentially, yes. That friction we've come to accept, blockchain could all but eliminate it.
Wow. Okay, that's huge.
But
it doesn't stop there, right? What about supply chains? That's something I think a lot about. Like, how do we actually know where our products are coming from?
that's another area where blockchain shines. Let's stick with the house analogy. We've talked about the financial foundation. Now think about the logistics, the actual building process. That's where supply chain management comes in.
Okay, so like being able to track a product from start to finish, like those coffee beans I'm always buying.
Precisely. Imagine tracking those beans from the moment they're harvested, through shipping, all the way to your local coffee shop.
And all of that is recorded on the blockchain.
Yes,
Yeah.
every step of the way. Ensuring fair trade practices, verifying ethical sourcing. You could even track the environmental impact of your purchase.
Wow, that level of transparency would be incredible. But is it really that easy to implement?
Well, there are always challenges with any new technology. We're still in the early stages here. Remember, we're still building that blockchain house. But the potential is there. We're already seeing real-world examples.
Right, like that government program using blockchain that our sources mentioned.
Yes.
Yeah.
GovCoin, a UK initiative, used blockchain to distribute social welfare benefits. More efficient, less prone to fraud. The funds went directly to the people who needed them.
That's fantastic. Finally, a government program that actually sounds efficient.
Right. And that's just one example. Imagine applying that same technology to government as a whole.
Okay, yeah, I'm picturing it. Less corruption, faster service delivery, more transparency.
Exactly. Property records, voting, you name it.
That's a future I can get behind. Less bureaucracy and more efficiency. Sign me up. But it's not just about systems, right? It's also about empowering individuals.
Absolutely. Think about charity. Have you ever donated to a cause and wondered, did my money actually make a difference?
Oh, all the time.
With blockchain, you'd have that transparency. You could track your donation every step of the way, ensuring it reaches the intended recipients.
Wow, that's incredible. Like that direct-to-farmer coffee, but for making a difference in the world. What other ways can blockchain empower individuals? Our sources talk about healthcare, which seems like such a natural fit.
It is. Think about your medical records. Incredibly sensitive information, right?
Sure.
With blockchain, you control that data. You grant access securely and transparently to doctors or researchers, but only on your terms.
So instead of paper trails and faxes and hoping for the best, it's more like a digital vault that I control.
Exactly. Our sources mention something called MedRec, which combines electronic health records with data from fitness trackers and even DNA services.
Hold on. So I'd have this like holistic view of my health data all on the blockchain, secured and controlled by me.
That's the idea. It's like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it could become a reality.
The potential for personalized medicine for research with that kind of data, it's mind-blowing.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, from finance to healthcare. And it seems like blockchain can revolutionize almost anything. Which brings us to what our sources call a game changer: smart contracts. This is where things get really interesting.
Indeed. Remember our house analogy. We'll think of smart contracts as automating tasks within our blockchain house. They're agreements stored on the blockchain that execute automatically when certain conditions are met. So if blockchain is the foundation, our smart contracts like the plumbing and electrical work, making sure everything runs smoothly.
That's a great way to put it. Think of a vending machine. You put in your money, select your snack. If you meet the conditions, boom, you get your snack. Smart contracts operate on that same principle, but for a much wider range of actions. Handling payments, transferring ownership, all without the need for intermediaries.
Like a digital vending machine for agreements. Our sources brought up car insurance as a potential use case for smart contracts.
Yes. Imagine your car insurance premiums adjusting in real time based on your actual driving habits, not just general statistics. Your car's sensors record your driving data, and that data is fed into a smart contract. Drive safely, your premiums go down.
Now that you mention it, that would be amazing. No more overpaying because someone else is a reckless driver. It seems like this technology could bring so much more fairness and transparency to a lot of industries.
Absolutely. And consider international trade, often bogged down by paperwork and bureaucracy. Smart contracts could streamline those processes. Faster letters of credit, automated payments, real-time tracking of goods.
It's like what we were talking about with faster transactions, but applied to the entire global trade system. That's incredible. What about something closer to home, though? How could smart contracts impact our everyday digital lives?
Think about digital identity. Right now, it's so fragmented. We're scattering pieces of our personal information across countless online services.
It's true. Every time I sign up for something new online, it feels like I'm giving away a little piece of my digital soul.
Exactly. But with smart contracts, you could have a single, secure digital identity stored on the blockchain. You control what information you share and with whom.
So it's about putting users back in control of their data. I like it. That's something I think we can all get behind. It sounds like smart contracts have the potential to revolutionize a lot of different aspects of our lives. But our sources take it a step further. They pose this really interesting question. What if we could reimagine social media using blockchain?
Right. They use the example of a decentralized microblogging platform, and it really challenges us to think, why do we even need such a thing?
Okay, I'll bite. Why do we need a decentralized Twitter? What's wrong with the one we have now?
Well, for starters, think about the issues we see with centralized platforms like Twitter. Censorship, data privacy concerns, the power of big tech companies to control the narrative. Our sources even mention the technical glitches that can disrupt these platforms. Remember when that certain president's account went haywire?
Oh, yeah, that was a wild ride. And let's not forget those constant worries about data breaches or our information being used in ways we didn't agree to.
Exactly. Not to mention the trolls and online abuse. It's a problem.
It really is. So how would a decentralized platform be any different?
A decentralized microblogging platform built on blockchain could potentially address these issues. Instead of a single company calling the shots, it would be controlled by its users.
So it would be much more difficult to censor content or manipulate algorithms.
Exactly.
So instead of one central authority, it's more like a digital town hall.
Yeah.
Where everyone has a voice and a say in how things are run.
Right.
That's a pretty radical departure from how we think about social media now.
It is. And it could create a much more democratic online experience, don't you think?
Potentially, yeah. But how do you prevent things from descending into chaos if everyone's anonymous and in control? Our source mentioned that anonymity is a key feature.
It's definitely a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It requires a different approach, that's for sure.
It seems like that could go very wrong very quickly.
It could, but the goal of anonymity here isn't to hide bad intentions, you see. It's about giving users more control over their online identities.
So they can express themselves without fear of reprisal.
Exactly. It could foster a greater sense of freedom online, encourage more thoughtful discussions.
Oh, so it's less about like trying to police everyone's behavior.
Right.
And more about creating a system where the community itself can organically marginalize bad actors.
That's the idea.
That's a fascinating concept, but it also feels like a huge gamble.
It is. It's not a guaranteed utopia by any means. There are definitely challenges to building a truly decentralized online space.
Like what? What kinds of challenges?
Well, our sources emphasize the importance of figuring out governance in a decentralized environment. Content moderation, preventing misinformation.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the utopian ideal without thinking about the potential downsides. But how do you even begin to tackle those challenges when there's no central authority calling the shots?
That's where things get really interesting. It requires some creative solutions, for sure.
Like what?
Well, our sources talk about community-based moderation, for example.
Okay, interesting.
Reputation systems, new ways of verifying information that don't rely on traditional gatekeepers.
So instead of relying on algorithms or a few big companies to filter information for us, we'd be relying on the collective intelligence of the online community itself.
Exactly.
That's both empowering and a little terrifying, to be honest.
It is, but it's also an opportunity, a chance to build a more resilient online experience, something more democratic.
A system that reflects the values of its users, not just big tech companies. It's a really compelling idea.
It is. It's like we've been so focused on all the problems, all the cracks in the foundation, that we forgot we could build something entirely new.
Exactly. And this decentralized future where users have more control, it's really exciting.
It is. And we have to remember that blockchain and smart contracts, they're just tools.
Tools for building that future.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a whole toolbox of new technologies out there with the potential to reshape the digital world. This is just the beginning.
It's a lot to process, that's for sure. From self-executing contracts to the future of social media, this deep dive has really pushed me to think differently.
That's what we're here for.
But with all this talk about revolutionizing the internet, it's important to remember that these are still early days. We have to be cautious, right?
Absolutely. We have to be critical, ask the right questions, and maybe be a little skeptical too.
Right. Just because something is decentralized doesn't automatically make it good.
Exactly.
It's clear that blockchain and smart contracts have the potential to be incredibly disruptive.
Absolutely.
But whether that disruption leads to a more equitable, more empowering future, well, that's up to us to decide.
It's a future worth fighting for, though, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And it starts by having these conversations, exploring new possibilities, demanding more from the technology we create and interact with every day.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So it's less about, trying to police everyone's behavior.
Right.
And more about creating a system where the community itself can organically marginalize bad actors.
That's the idea.
That's a fascinating concept, but it also feels like a huge gamble.
It is. It's not a guaranteed utopia by any means. There are definitely challenges to building a truly decentralized online space.
Like what? What kinds of challenges?
Well, our sources emphasize the importance of figuring out governance in a decentralized environment. Content moderation, preventing misinformation.
That makes sense. It's easy to get caught up in the utopian ideal without thinking about the potential downsides. But how do you even begin to tackle those challenges when there's no central authority calling the shots?
That's where things get really interesting. It requires some creative solutions for sure.
Like what?
Well, our sources talk about community-based moderation, for example.
Okay, interesting.
Reputation systems, new ways of verifying information that don't rely on traditional gatekeepers.
So instead of relying on algorithms or a few big companies to filter information for us,
right,
we'd be relying on the collective intelligence of the online community itself.
Exactly.
That's both empowering and a little terrifying, to be honest.
It is, but it's also an opportunity, a chance to build a more resilient online experience, something more democratic.
A system that reflects the values of its users, not just big tech companies. It's a really compelling idea.
It is. It's like we've been so focused on all the problems, all the cracks in the foundation, that we forgot we could build something entirely new.
Exactly. And this decentralized future where users have more control, it's really exciting.
It is. And we have to remember that blockchain and smart contracts, they're just tools.
Tools for building that future.
Exactly. There's a whole toolbox of new technologies out there with the potential to reshape the digital world. This is just the beginning.
It's a lot to process, that's for sure. From self-executing contracts to the future of social media, this deep dive has really pushed me to think differently.
That's what we're here for. It's about asking the right questions.
Right, and it's about realizing that we have a choice in how this technology shapes our future. Well, on that note, I want to thank you. And I want to thank our listeners.
It's been a pleasure.
For joining us on this incredible journey into the world of blockchain, smart contracts, and the future of the decentralized web.
Until next time.